This is a meat safe. It's a traditional bit of kit, but this one is brand new because I've just finished making it. And today I want to tell you how I made this one, why I made it, and what I'm going to use it for. I must admit, I'm obsessed with kind of old working technology, and you see a meat safe now and again in an antique shop, and almost all of them, in my opinion, were adapted from other things, from cupboards or, you know, wardrobes or what have you, and that's what I've done today. Now, meat safes back in the day existed before refrigeration, and they were there where you could put your meat in one of these, had a nice bit of a cool cross breeze, it kept your meat protected, but also kept it cool. But obviously I've got refrigeration now, so why do I want one? Well, I'm getting more and more into air curing meats. Regular viewers of the channel will know we make our own bacon, and I'm just starting on something called Joan Carle, and more of that later, but it's a wonderful air cured pork product. And I'd like to get more into things like salami, because we eat a lot of those products. But to do that, you need to be able to air cure, and to air cure, you need a cool, well ventilated product that protects the meat. So I had to make this. So today, I want to show you how I made it, talk a little bit about the philosophy of why we make and adapt things, and trust me, right, I am no craftsman, I am no expert, but as a smallholder you've got to be willing to have a go. So let me show you me having a go. So this is what I want to make the meat safe out of. It's an old pine IKEA bedside table. We've had it for years and years and years, and it's been out in the workshop for at least 15 years now. The doors don't close, the drawer doesn't open, the wood's all swollen, it's covered in paint and gunk where I've been storing paint. Oh, and I managed to pull the knob off it as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is just mark up the drawers and the doors and show where it's sticking, in order so that I can address that, ease the drawer, ease the doors, and then we can start adapting it into a meat safe when it at least opens and closes. I'm going to use one of my favourite tools for this. This is an old Black & Decker Workmate. They haven't made them like this for a very long time. It's even got a little bit you can stand on to brace things. And this one I paid 20 quid for in a car boot sale, like an estate sale for our American friends. But it's a brilliant bit of kit. Now what I'm going to do now is just plane off the areas I've marked with a power planer. I've got hand planes, I use hand planes, but as you can see here, a power planer is fast, and honestly it's a lot easier to use if you haven't spent a lot of time practicing with a hand plane. Obviously it does need batteries or mains, but it really will get this thing thinned out quickly. So I've eased the drawer, and now I'm going to ease the door. And in order to do that, I've got to take it off its hinges. And there's two tools here you might not even notice, but I believe in really good hand screwdrivers. I like the Stanley Fatmax brand, and they come in all sorts of sizes and styles, and they're even labelled so you know which is which, and a little magnetic tray to keep the screws safe. With that done, what I'm going to do is plane off the edge of the door, and you can see that the Workmate can hold that thin door in an upright position. Again, just make the job so much easier. I mean, honestly, a Black & Decker Workmate, if you haven't got one, is a primary tool. And while I've got the planer out, I'm going to plane the top down of this cabinet as well. And I want you to notice that cabinet rock until I brace it hard. That's why I like to clamp workpieces in place. Now, I could sand this down, I could scrape it, but you can see with the planer how quickly I can resurface the top of this cabinet, make it all nice and neat and tidy. With the door eased, I want to get rid of that middle panel in the door. I'm going to cut that out and fill it with wire mesh to make the meat locker. Now, it may look odd, but I'm going to start with a drill, because what I need to do is get a jigsaw in there somewhere. And the jigsaw blade is small, so it can drop into that drilled hole, which is in the waste part we're going to throw away anyway, and I can cut outwards to the line that I want to remove, then turn the jigsaw slowly so that it's cutting the line I want to cut, and that way I'm only damaging the bit of wood that I'm going to throw away anyway. You probably need to drill a couple of holes to make this happen, but once you have, you can neatly cut out a hole in a solid piece of wood. Then I'm just going to take a detail sander, and I'm going to sand everything down, because I don't want any splinters or what have you. And while I'm there, I'll sand down the edges and all the old varnish off this unit, because I'm going to revarnish it at the end. Once you're cutting and drilling and planing, obviously you're damaging the finish, so the whole thing needs refinishing. Now it's time to refit the door, and I'm going to use new stainless steel screws. Stainless steel screws cost a lot more, but for anything that's exposed to damp, oh my goodness, they're worth it in the long term. And now the door opens and closes nice and freely. The door back in place, what I want to do is transfer the lines from the top and bottom of that mesh panel, where it will be a mesh panel, onto the sides, and put similar holes in the sides of the cabinet so that we can have mesh on 3 sides. And I'm using this combination square, which is fantastic. It's like a carpenter square, but you can slide the ruler in and out of the 90-degree angle. So it's fine for marking those horizontal lines, but then I slide it through so it's only 2 centimeters through, and I can use it to trace neat vertical lines on both sides of the cabinet, and that creates the perfect template. As you can see, sits on the edge, pencil on the top, run the line. A great little tool. With that in place, all I've got to do is drill and cut the same as I did before, and I'll cut out a similar size panel on the sides. And here you can see that jigsaw going into the hole I drilled, cutting down to the line I've marked up with a combination square, pivot the jigsaw and cut along the line. I'm not going to put a mesh panel in the back, so the next job is to sand down all of what's left of the cabinet. No point in sanding it down first because we were going to cut big holes in it. There is one other thing though that I'm going to need to do, and that is to put something in to support the meat. I'm going to use a bar to hang the meat from. So what I'm going to do is drill a hole each side under the drawer, but over where the mesh panel is going to go. And then I'll just take a piece of this stuff. This is called all thread. It's like one long bolt that you cut to length. And I've put a nut on one end and put a washer on. Then I can just turn the cabinet over and cut off the excess. Obviously making sure that I leave room to put a nut on the other side. And I'm using a thing called a slitting disc on an angle grinder here, and that makes really short work much quicker than the old hacksaws. With that done, I'll use a thing called a flap disc on another angle grinder just to smooth it out, make sure there's no sharp edges on the metal. And that's how it'll work in the end. I'm going to get some shorter S-hooks, but you get the idea. The meat will hang from the bar while it's air curing. I'm not going to get too pernickety about the finish on this thing, but I've swept it all out, got rid of the sawdust, etc. And I'm going to wipe it out with some white spirit just to get rid of the fine dust before I revarnish. And do note, I'm wearing ear defenders and a proper dust mask there after I've been doing all of this work. It really is worth it. Take it from an old man. Now, with that done, I'm going to varnish it. There's all sorts of finishes I could put on this, but varnish wipes clean, and I'm going to be using this for meat, so varnish it is. Then onto the mesh infills. Now this stuff I've bought. I'm going to put my hands up for that, but it's not expensive, and I'm only going to use less than a metre of it. Comes on a roll, very fine metal mesh, and what I'm going to do, measure up where it needs to go, mark it with a Sharpie, and then I'll just cut it to size. The way that I'm going to cut it to size is, again, another super cheap but super useful tool. These are called aviation tin snips, and I use them a lot when making the walk-in chicken runs because they're so much better than the old-fashioned tin snips because they work just like scissors. They're really powerful. They can slice through all kinds of wire mesh, make the job easy, cost a few pounds. To attach the mesh, I'm lucky enough to have an upholstery type staple gun that's very powerful, and that's what I'm going to use. But if I didn't have that, I'd just use a thin bit of batten round the edge of the mesh and screw it in place into the door to hold the mesh in place. This is the finished article then. It's had a couple of coats of varnish. Okay, that makes it look nice, but mostly it's so it'll wipe clean. Here it is with the shorter stainless steel S-hooks inside, which are a better size, and they store away neatly in the drawer, which is handy when not in use. It opens up nice and simply now, and you can see through the door when I open it. So you can see how much airflow we're going to get around that. And these are black pepper encrusted pieces of pork that we're turning into guanciale, but that's another video. That's my meat safe. I'm sure it's not quite how IKEA envisaged it originally when they made it as a bedside table, but that's what peasant life and small holding is all about. It's about improvising and adapting and making the things you need. It's not about going out with a big checkbook and buying loads of stuff. I am nobody's craftsman. Okay, everything I do is kind of self-taught, watching YouTube videos and what have you. But I hope that this video has shown if you've got a few tools and you're willing to kind of experiment and try, you can often make the things you need around you. Now I'm going to use this first to make guanciale, but we're also doing honey cured bacon at the moment. If you want to see that, I can do a little snippet. We've got a whole series on bacon making, but I'll do a snippet in one of our monthly updates if you want to see honey cured bacon. I have to say it smells amazing at the moment. If you've enjoyed this video, can you spare us 5 seconds? Give us a thumbs up down below. If you've got any questions on our self-sufficient life, leave us a comment down there and we'll either answer it down there or we'll make a video to answer it. And if you want to see those videos and everything else we do, tap on subscribe, hit the bell next to it. It's a free service that tells you every time we upload new content. But for today, I need a mug of Bovril. It's freezing out here. Thanks for joining us. Come back and see us soon. Take care.